Alan King, Director of Public Works and Utilities. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with this update on the last week's efforts by the city to respond to the snow and ice. I'd like to, if I may, present this as a chronology and describe what our approach was during that time. What we looked at is that we were starting the snow season with 100% of our stores for salt mix in place so that we could be prepared for the summer or for the winter that we were looking at. What we did was we reordered supplies in early December, and the reason for that was we had some weather events that we had to respond to in November, and by the time we got through November and through the end of December with about a month-long order on new materials, we got down to 35%, and that's one of the things I think that folks have picked up on. What we did was, before the snow event of last Tuesday, February 4th, we applied brine, salt in water, brine treatment in the days leading up to the February 4th snow because we had it in the forecast that a significant event was about to happen. We put all of our 50 plow trucks in duty with 100 staff. We operated them around the clock, 24 hours on 12-hour shifts, and we started the day before the storm, getting material out and getting prepared. On February 4th, we received 9 inches of snow, and that's not particularly unusual, but the amount and intensity that we got in the last hours, over just a few hours during that time, that presented a significant challenge for us. That challenge can be best described as the rate at which the snow comes and accumulates on the street versus our ability to, with the equipment that we have to remove it. What that means is, as we're moving through the city with the plows, snow falls on those roads after we got done plowing it. And with the number of trucks that we have and the number of lane miles on our routes and the kinds of streets that we have, it takes us about 24 hours to get once through the city one time. Well, in 24 hours, behind the plowing, you have snow coming and accumulating on those roads that were plowed. Now, again, that's not unusual, and what we do is we come back with a second pass and a third pass and address that snow that's fallen since the last time we were there. But this was coupled with, this is the part that was unusual. We had unusually cold temperatures that came in, and it turned that ice that was left on the roads and packed by traffic into a snow pack. In some ways, it's a lot like ice. It's very tough, and the longer you wait in the cold temperatures, the tougher it gets. What we did was we continued to plow on the emergency routes until eventually that snowpack became so hard that our plows just rode on top of it, and we weren't removing any more snow. We were just basically gliding over the ice. It's a lot like ice. Well, with the low temperatures and the snowpack that we were looking at and how thick that snowpack was, we made a decision that if we applied sand, even if we were fully stocked with sand, that's about 6,000 tons of snow, ice mix, sand and salt. Even if we were fully stocked, we go through about a ton a mile, or about 1,500 tons per pass through the city. Fully stocked, that means we can go fully through the city 4 times. And we were looking at that snowpack, how thick it was and how hard it was, and we made the decision that it was not a good idea for us to put down chemical because of 2 things. One is we'd have to guess that we could get all the way through that pack with the 4 passes. We weren't sure that we'd be able to do that, particularly with the low temperatures that we're having. And more importantly, until you get all the way through that snowpack with your salt, you have time in between the next reapplication. For us, it's 8 to 10 hours if we're doing not plowing, just straight application. In that 8 to 10 hours, you'd have that material until you get all the way down through it. You'd have it refreeze, which would make things worse than they were as when we started it. We didn't want to take a packed ice snowpack, which has some traction, and turn it into a glazed ice surface, which has less traction. So we made the decision that the best thing we could do was to liberally apply a lot of straight sand mix, and that's what we did over the next several days. Now, what that looks like is the trucks are out there with their plows up, and they're not plowing. Well, the reason for that was a conscious decision. If we had tried to plow, we wouldn't wouldn't push anything out of the way other than the sand that we were applying in the driving surfaces. So we consciously decided to leave the plows up and just to continue adding sand to the road, straight sand. And you have to continue because particularly in the early part of the storm, you had wind blowing some of that sand off of those surfaces, and then the traffic can work it off, and so you have to continue to apply it, and that's what we did over the next several days. Now, comes Friday, and we're getting a revised forecast, and they're saying, you know, you could get some temperatures still below freezing, but not that much below freezing, and more importantly, some sunshine on Saturday. And we thought, here's our opportunity. So what we did is we applied our sand and salt mix at that point, really dosed it a good one, and allowed the traffic to work it in so that it could have a chance on Saturday to break up that snowpack. The snowpack was the thing that was hurting us. Well, that was very successful. But with the traffic that we saw on Saturday, the snowpack started breaking up, and that's what looked like slush, unfrozen soft snow. And the reason you saw that was we wanted to give it enough time to work as much as it could on that snowpack, and so we didn't just push it off, because once you push that chemical off, it can no longer do its job. So what people saw on Saturday was loose material on the roads for a period of time. As soon as we knew that there wasn't any more breaking up going on, we started with our plowing. Again, it takes 24 hours to get through the street, and we started pushing that loose material off. And what you saw as a result on Sunday was we had significantly decreased the amount of snowpack that was on the roadways. So that was a conscious decision we did, and one of the reasons for that was we were looking ahead that yet another snowstorm was going to be coming in on Monday, and it was going to probably be timed right before before rush hour, which is the worst possible time. Fortunately for us, because of what we did, that snow did not then become a new layer of snowpack added to an existing layer of snowpack, making the challenge even greater. What it did instead was we had a reduced snowpack layer that it fell on, and it was chemically treated and dirty, what we call it. It didn't stick very well, and in less than 24 hours, we made a significant impact on taking that new accumulated 4 inches off of the roadway, and you can see the results today of after a 4-inch snow, we got down basically to where we were Sunday and a little bit better. So that was the 4.2 inches that we had on Monday, and I think that what we're seeing today is a result of the strategy that we employed. We're continuing to apply sand salt mix right now. This is when it does its good with the temperatures and the sunshine that we're going to get today. We're seeing some above freezing temperatures forecasted. Yay. Road conditions will improve significantly by the end of this week. Now, one of the concerns that some folks had was they saw a difference in the streets, the level of service, the appearance of the streets in our neighboring communities, the communities that neighbor us. And I'd like to give a little bit of an explanation of what you were looking at, what you were seeing. For example, we approached a couple of communities that were willing to share some information with us, so we got enough information to try to make an apples-to-apples comparison. We talked to Andover. They have 50 lane miles of snow routes with 4 trucks and 2 motor graders, and really good staff. And Wichita has 1,500 lane miles, 50 trucks, and 8 motor graders. If we were to try to achieve the same sort of result that Andover did, it would require that we add an additional 70 plow trucks and additional 52 motor graders for us to replicate what they did. What Andover did was they got out ahead of it. They were able to remove that snowpack by increasing the amount of times that they were on those roads and shorten the distance or the amount of time in between plowing, and they got out ahead of it, and they actually removed that snowpack. Now, once you've got the snowpack gone, it's a very much different situation going forward on how you respond. That wasn't an option that was available to us. With the amount of equipment that we had and the freezing temperatures afterwards, there is no way we could get through the routes in less than 24 hours. And with those temperatures, we didn't have the ability to avoid the snowpack. Hayesville, we talked with the folks there. They have 14 lane miles. They do theirs, they say, somewhere between 4 and 8 hours getting through their entire system. Again, with our 50 trucks to plow all primary routes in 24 hours, extrapolating out, you're talking about we would need 100 to 250 additional trucks to plow our 1,500 lane miles within that 4 to 8 hours. Quite frankly, these sorts of events that we saw are relatively rare. And when we look at the number of trucks that we have, all of our trucks are working trucks. What I mean by that is they're used by water or streets or sewer or some other part for the city, the normal year-long operation. We don't have additional trucks sitting with the dedicated purpose of being snow equipment removal. We use the trucks we have, and that's how we've arrived at that number 50. We're giving double duty for those trucks that wouldn't be doing that other work anyway, outfitting them with plows, and that's the way that we've selected the level of fleet that we have. We recognize that every opportunity like this, you need to learn some lessons, you need to improve, you need to look for opportunities. So our next steps, we're going to debrief with our supervisors and our frontline staff, our operators, and ask them for opportunities that we could improve. What are things that they saw that we could have done to have a better response? We're going to also review our options for available contract services to get some additional equipment out there at that critical time when we have that accumulating snowpack. That may be a better option for us because you don't have to have that equipment parked during the rest of the year. And again, I say this is a fairly rare event. It doesn't happen every winter. We need to identify additional salt resupply options. Again, we were concerned about how low we had gotten to, but it didn't really impact our operation because of the extreme low temperatures. Once we got that snowpack and the long period of time in between reapplications, we were concerned about refreeze and creating a more dangerous situation for our traveling public. And we need to review our budget options and our levels of service. See if the desire is there for us to spend additional funds to achieve higher levels of service, or if we're about right. If we think that for the rare storm, this is the best sort of approach we can take, and that for the most storms, what we've got right now is working. And here's probably the most important thing. I think if we had an area where I could say that we needed to do a better job, it would have been informing the public. We needed, for example, on Saturday, when we knew that we were breaking up that snow and there was loose material on the roads, and yet we were leaving it there. Trucks were still spreading material but had their blades up. People didn't understand what it was we were doing. It looks like we were leaving snow and not plowing it off. Well, that was intentional. We need to warn people about that and let them know what it's doing, which leads me probably to the most important point following that, and that is we've got to improve our communication with the public, not just to say what it is we're doing and what the forecast is and how many trucks we got out, but maybe we need to help explain a little bit of the why behind what we're doing so folks understand that we got a reason for what we've done. We're in a situation because of our resources and the conditions, and we've got our reasons for doing what we're doing. And I think that's probably the takeaway for me is probably the need for a better communication. And that concludes my presentation.
Mr. Allen, I have a question for you, and that is, how many trucks did you say we would need to be able to, we have 50, and you said we'd have to purchase how many more? Mr. Manager, it's about 70?
70.
Okay, so if we
Additional.
We don't have snows this often here. Some years we don't have anything, and we may go 4 or 5 years. What do we do with the remaining trucks, Mr. Manager?
Those trucks would be stored in our lot because maybe we'd use a few for additional street maintenance activities during the regular season, but basically you would have a fleet that sat idly during the rest of the year.
But with the trucks, we have to buy the shovels and things of that nature that go in the front of them, all the necessary equipment we use for snow removal. We'd have to purchase those items also?
Yes.
Or they come with the truck?
You'd have to buy a truck and that equipment, whether you bought them together or separately. But yeah, you're right. It has to have all of the equipment, not just the truck.
So in some cases, we would have to leave the equipment for several years until we needed it.
Not unlike what we're doing with our plows during the off seasons now, we store them.
Okay.
Mayor, and I think it's one of the reasons why Mr. King talked about reviewing contractual opportunities. If we have some contractors that can supplement our crews during storms like this, that may be the better approach, and we're going to identify those possible resources.
Okay. Councilman Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. Alan, I would still like to say thank you to you and Joe Pager and the rest of the staff for the hard work that you put in. I know that there were 12-hour days and even more. I think that the people that work in the public works, and especially during this snow season, take pride in what they do. And you can tell that by talking to some of them that are out on the street. So I think that they did what they thought were the best things. We carried out steps, but anytime you can come away and say, I learned something, I think is beneficial to all of us. So I would just like to say thank you to all of you in Public Works who endured this for the last week.
Okay. And certainly, Alan, I appreciate you coming to the council meeting and saying something to us today and kind of updating everyone on exactly where we're at. And I know that the ideal situation is we would like to have this perfect world where we had 70-degree weather and we didn't necessarily have snow, or we didn't have freezing rain, or we didn't have any of those things. But unfortunately, we're in Kansas. You know, we never know what the wind is going to be doing, you know, any 4 hours. So I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Certainly tell the crews. I know that they've been taking some really hard hits, but we also know that they've been working 14 and 16-hour days nonstop, just going home, getting some sleep, and coming back. And those are things that citizens don't know. And so with that, certainly leads me into the next comment that I'm going to make, because citizens don't know these things. We have some citizens that can be very cruel, and they can be very juvenile with some of the things that they use with social media today. And they say things and make it personal, and have no idea that these employees are the people that live next door to them, are working these long hours and trying to do the best that they possibly can, and you know, it's no fault of theirs. And so certainly, you know, please, you know, let the employees know and the guys driving those trucks that we appreciate what they're doing, and we just have to figure out, you know, as policymakers, do we want to buy the 70 trucks? That's it. We give them the tools, they'll get the job done. It's as simple as that. And certainly, Joe, I've seen some of the comments that have been said, and you know, and I appreciate what you've been doing, and I know that you've been working long hours. I know you've been staying out there with the crews and keeping the crews going, and I certainly appreciate what you've been doing in managing this. Okay. So tell us what the dollar figure is for the 70 trucks, because I know some council members that were concerned about it. Just tell us what the dollar figure is for us to be able to get those other trucks. And we're in the middle of working CIP right now, and we can actually, you know, just put the ball in our court. Okay. With that being said, Mr. Manager, do you have anything else? Besides, you don't really want to spend that kind of money. I know that.
No, you know, again, I think we recognize the storm presented us with some problems and definitely inconvenienced the public, and you know, for that, we are sorry, and I think we will look at the options. I know we will look at the options that Alan just discussed, and we will bring something back to you, especially in terms of better communication with our public, as well as looking at some other resources that we could bring to bear for similar storms in the future.
Okay.